Hello everyone, welcome to the video. My name is Maze, and in this video we're finally going to be finishing off the picture frame urn, specifically the base and the carvings. So without further ado, let's get right to work and make some dust. So first thing we need to work on is the base. Now, I had originally planned on making it so you could hang this up on the wall, but the person who I'm making it for talked to me and decided that she'd rather have a base for it to stand on so that she could put it on a shelf. So I kind of had to make this one up as I went. So I chopped me off a nice chunk of cherry. So the first part I wanted to work on was making the molding for the base. So I ripped me off a piece of cherry from my chunk. I cut it slightly bigger than it needed to be on the first pass so I could flip it around and come back for a second pass and get it to its size and make sure both sides were nice and clean and square and everything. Now I could get two boards out of this piece, so I resawed it. Now when I resaw something, even if I can do it in one pass, I usually do it in at least two. It just feels safer to me that way. And so I was able to resaw it on one side, then flip it over onto the other plane surface and resaw it from that side and get my two pieces and have about a 1/4 inch piece from the middle left over to use for something later. So then I took my trim router and with an OG bit, cut the profile into both sides of both boards, and I did it in 2 passes. I usually like to take a thick cut on the first pass and then a very fine cut on the second pass, and it seems to help minimize the burn marks I get. Not really eliminate them completely, but it definitely works better for me when I do it that way. So then I took those boards over to the planer and I planed them down to the profile was exactly how I like it. I find I can get way better results when I do it this way. Route it out first and then plane it to a good thickness, as opposed to planing it and then routing it, because you could really fine tune that profile and get it so it's exactly how you want it. So after that, it was over to the table saw to cut them out. So the first one, I cut just the profile out. And then I cut the second one so that I could have the first one on top of the second one and have 2 tiers of the OG that were symmetrical and then would line up flat on the back side. Then it was time for the glue up. So I glued up the 2 tiers and I just used some tape as clamps to hold it together. I was going for kind of like a crown molding look, even though it's more like where base molding would be, and it's going to be part of the base. I wanted that decorative kind of build up. And then I used the straw trick I showed in my 99-cent store video. Go check that out when you get a chance, to clean out the squeeze out. Then I resawed a board off with a leftover chunk from earlier and planed it down to 3/4 inches. So like I said in my other videos in this series, I wanted to do as much by hand as possible. And so I cut these miters by hand, and I used a shooting board with a low angle jack plane to really dial in these corners. Now, if you don't have a shooting board, you need to make one. These things are awesome. Just the shooting board alone makes a low angle jack plane worth it. It just really helped me up my game as far as hand cut miters, and it's something I've been doing a lot for moldings, just because my miter saw is kind of scary to do it with these really small pieces. So if you're thinking about buying a low angle jack plane, go check out my unboxing and review of this one. and I glued the corners together. I took two opposite corners and glued them together separately, and then I'll glue the two pieces together once those are dry. And then I made sure to clean off the glue and to check it with a combination square. So then once I had glued those two pieces together, even before it dried really, I could glue it to that board I planed earlier. So I'm going to glue this to the board using clamps, but right here I'm going to test fit it to make sure everything looks good. So that's how the base is going to work. The picture frame urn is going to sit in it, and so they could actually pull it out and use it on the wall too if they wanted to. But after that I was just clamping it down. And then once that was dry, I could come back and saw off the extra part of the board. I kept the board a little bit longer than I needed so it would fit through my planer. It's got to be at least 15 inches. This is a lot longer than 15 inches, but it would have been shorter if I cut the size earlier. And then I took my plane and shooting board and shot the edge so it was nice and straight. And it was pretty much done, the base. So once I got that part done, then I took the actual urn and checked it out to see what it would look like. And it could be pretty much done at this point. I have the lid for the repository, and then you get some glass and it's done. But I'm going to, well, put some finish on it obviously. But I'm going to take that extra step and do some carvings just to make it a little bit more personable. Before I started the carvings, I decided to route out the rebate on the back for the glass. This way the frame is still flat and I could set it down and have a flat surface to route on. And then I took some chisels and squared off the corners. So I want to talk about my design for the carving. The man that this is for was a spiritual man and a Christian. Wasn't necessarily religious, but I wanted the carvings to represent the idea that this was a temple, a sanctuary, or a holy place. So the sides of the frame, I made these Greek-style columns to give it that temple feel. For the bottom, I used the miter I had made to act as like the transition from the pedestal of the column to the steps. So it looked like you could walk up the steps into the temple, and inside the temple would be where the repository was and where the remains would be held. The top, I wanted to look like the top of a temple, but also a crown. And here I would have been better off using half-lap joints instead of mitered half-lap joints, because the miters kind of ruined the effect I was going for by breaking up the pattern and flow of the wood grain of the top. But I did the joinery before I figured out what I was going to do with the carvings. So, lesson learned for the future. And I used an overlay to bring out the cross on the top to hopefully bring attention to the cross and the crown so that the flow of the design led upwards to the cross and to heaven, that type of thing. So I think you don't have to be religious or spiritual to think about these things and consider them when you're carving for something like this. Think about the person who's going to be in there and what they would want or need, and have the piece give a subtle kind of even subliminal comfort and closure for the family. So this man was a Christian, and so am I, so that made it easy. But even if he was Buddhist or Muslim or Jewish, or pagan or atheist or whatever, you would do the same thing. You would respect the person and do your best and put your heart into it and try to make something that would have meaning to them. So that was my ideas behind the carving. I think it turned out pretty cool. But tell me in the comments what you think. And then it was time for the finish. So I just used some boiled linseed oil to kind of give it a nice color, nice tint. And then I used wipe-on poly to protect it. And it was essentially done. I just had to assemble it, and it was ready to go. They were going to put the glass in themselves, so I didn't have to worry about putting in the glass. But it was pretty much good to go after this. And then here's how it looked all done. They're going to get the glass and put in a picture after they put in the remains in here. So there it is. Tell me what you think in the comments. If you liked this video or it inspired you or you learned anything, if you could click that thumbs up for me, I'd appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed for more videos like this, and follow me on Instagram. And thanks for watching. And that's the video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, if you would hit that like button, I'd very much appreciate it. And before you go, I got a special announcement from everybody's favorite YouTuber, PewDiePie.
Smash, subscribe, smash, subscribe, smash, subscribe, smash, subscribe, smash, subscribe. What are we gonna do? Smash, subscribe. That's right.
That is right, PewDiePie. Thank you very much. And as always, support your local craftsmen or get out in your workshops and make your own dust.